Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to see your bright and shining faces, and I can actually see most of them, so that's kind of a miracle. I don't know if it was just an accident that this conference was organized on actually a very important date in Cuban-American history. I'm not sure if anybody knows what that is. I'm sure Gloria knows. I know Antonella knows. On February 15th, 1898, had to do with another boat. It was the sinking of the USS Maine. And that, of course, precipitated the Spanish-American War, which precipitated and accelerated Cuban independence from colonial Spain. So that was a historically important date. It's also the day today that in my home state of California, Governor Newsom has lifted the statewide mask mandate. Of course, he lifted it today, and yesterday was Valentine's Day, you know, kind of the day when you might want to be looking your best and, oh, I don't know, maybe even kiss somebody. So, as usual, California got it completely backwards. So, I'm generally very pleased about all of these loosening of restrictions, but, you know, speaking of Valentine's Day, I do occasionally go on a blind date, and those social distancing requirements could be pretty convenient. It's not you, you know, it's just the CDC, sorry. And some cynics have suggested that these loosening of restrictions and mandates in some of the blue states might be linked to Joe Biden's dismal poll numbers. And it's true, many Americans are questioning the mental fitness of the president. And apparently even 38 lawmakers have demanded that the president take a cognitive function test, as if to prove a point. President Biden, when he heard of this, said, 38 lawmakers? Why, that's one from every single state in the union. So he's a little bit out of the times. But I give President Biden credit where credit is due. The Labor Department did come out with statistics, and there are a record job openings in the United States. Most of them are at CNN. So it's great to be with you here at the Future of Freedom in the Americas. Now, if you had told me in February of 2020 that I would be here at a conference on Latin America with Antonella Marti leading a concentrated effort to bring objectivism to Latin America, I would have said, what? Why? Now, it's not because, you know, we were oblivious to the cause of liberty in Latin America. In fact, the previous fall, we had just had the honor of having Gloria Alvarez as our keynote at our annual gala. But as a small think tank, you know, with a kind of niche focus on bringing Ayn Rand's ideas to the younger generation, it was just, frankly, not our priority. I think when you called the Atlas Society in those days, we didn't even have the Press 2 for Spanish option. So what's changed? Well, in March of 2020, everything changed. The United States panicked in response to a virus which was and is very dangerous to the very old and the very overweight, but is largely survivable for the vast majority of the population. In this panic, Latin America and much of the rest of the world followed suit. In this panic, we forgot overnight everything we ever knew for millennia about how the immune system functions. Overnight, we lost any ability to think in terms of trade-offs. We became obsessed with one impossible goal, which was the complete elimination of a virus at any costs. Any costs to jobs, any costs to small business, any costs to children's education, any costs to mental health, any costs to other vital aspects of health, any costs to civil liberties, any costs to fair elections, and any costs to freedom. Now, these costs have been absolutely unprecedented in the history of the United States and in the history of the world. So I've been asked to say a couple of words about lessons on liberty for the future of the United States, and I will give you one. Never, ever, ever, ever again. We have learned what other countries like Sweden already knew, and what the recent Johns Hopkins meta-analysis has recently confirmed, that, quote, lockdowns have had little to no public health effects. They have imposed enormous economic and social costs where they have been adopted, and that in conclusion, quote, lockdown policies are ill-founded and should be rejected as a pandemic policy instrument. We have learned that our public health institutions are corrupt, incompetent, and compromised, that they lost sight of whatever health mission they may have had at some point. In the case of the Centers for Disease Control, that might have been controlling disease, and instead pursued political agendas like suppressing fake pandemics of gun violence or vaping or racism. And as a result, they were distracted and flat-footed, unable to actually deal with a real pandemic. We have learned, sadly, that even within our own community of liberty-minded organizations, not enough can be relied upon to speak out boldly and uphold the core principles of liberty in a crisis. We have fortunately learned that there were others to fill the vacuum. Older institutions like AIER, with their sponsoring of the Great Barrington Declaration, and new organizations like our partners at the Brownstone Institute. And we have learned, or we should learn, that all of these bad policies and all of this bad politics are only symptoms of a deeper philosophical crisis for which there are only philosophical solutions, requiring a recommitment to objectivity, to reason, to individualism, and to freedom. Now, so how did all of that, those past 2 years, take me to being here at the future of freedom in the Americas? Well, in March of 2020, I found myself locked in my house, quite literally. Well, actually, it was my parents' house at the time in San Francisco, forbidden to leave without a medically mandated burqa, and with the dozen or so conferences where the Atlas Society exhibits every year canceled, with some of our social media messaging against lockdowns actually being shadow banned and censored. I know Antonella doesn't like me to use that word. And endangering the rest of our social media messaging on, perhaps any topic. I thought, well, I had one of those moments. What am I going to do? It's kind of thrown back in on myself, and I thought, what can I do? What do I have? And who can I partner with? So I was rummaging around in that old closet, and behind the flavored lip gloss and the Fiorucci glasses and old records of Duran Duran, I thought, you know, I have some high school Spanish. And it wasn't much, you know, it was just a thread, a little string. But I tugged at it, and I found a Spanish teacher in Venezuela, of all places. And along the way, I learned not only some Spanish, but I learned about what he was experiencing in his country. And one thing led to another. We did an animated video. My name is Venezuela. And it got a little bit of traction in the United States. But when we translated it to Spanish, it got 3 million views, which was more than 18 times what it had received in English. So I thought, what if we try to do that with some of our other videos? And so we did that with videos on Ayn Rand and victimhood and envy and socialism. And the same thing happened. We got similarly spectacular results. So I found that even with my embarrassingly bad Spanish, people in Latin America wanted to talk to me. It was awesome, you know, and I found all of these great new groups like Se Dice and Libertad y Progreso and ICP in Colombia. And I thought, you know, maybe we have something here. If this was what I could do with my very limited Spanish and my even more limited knowledge of Latin America, I thought, what if we took this outfit professional? You know, what if I could find someone who really had a deep knowledge of Latin America, who shared my love of Ayn Rand and objectivism? What if we could take all of the things that we've proven to be successful at the Atlas Society in the United States, and we could apply that to Latin America? So all of that took me to, of course, Antonella Martí and Vanessa Porras, and together we launched Sociedad Atlas last year. And that was one of the best decisions I have made in my 6 years at the Atlas Society. So, along the way, I've learned the limits of what we have here in the United States to teach Latin America. This became painfully clear, of course, when many Latin American countries followed the United States' lead on lockdowns and mandates, leading to similarly disastrous results. This past weekend, actually, I was at an event and I met a woman who is with an organization that is trying to educate parents on their rights to make decisions for their children, whether or not to get them vaccinated or not. And she was their point person. She was from Puerto Rico. She's the point person for the Spanish-speaking audience in the United States. And I was like, cool. Are you guys doing anything in Latin America, you know? And she said, no. Unfortunately, when it comes to Latin America, if the United States says, yeah, vaccinate your children and you should lock down and whatever, that's it. If the way she put it, she's like, if the United States says it's purple, which was kind of, you know, shocking to me. So if there's a lesson in that for Latin America, it would be, don't copy us. Don't copy us yesterday on COVID, tomorrow on climate change. Don't copy us. Don't follow, especially when we are pursuing an irrational path, but lead with a more rational path, and maybe we will have an opportunity to follow you. I also learned that whatever the United States may have to teach Latin America, we have as much, if not much more, to learn. We have, of course, unfortunately, the cautionary tales of Venezuela and Cuba and what happens when we lose sight of the causes of prosperity, all of the things that Ian was talking about, trade and commerce and freedom, and become seduced instead by socialism's appeals to envy, to victimhood, and to resentment. But we also have powerful examples of persistence against all odds, of ingenuity in the face of oppression, and most recently in Cuba, of the power of the few to stand up to the many, and the power of artistic expression to lend courage, to inspire others to the cause of freedom. As Ayn Rand observed, art is the indispensable medium for communicating a moral ideal. This does not mean that art is a substitute for philosophical thought, but without the assistance of art, ethics remains in the position of theoretical engineering. Art is the model builder. The observation is one that has guided the work of the Atlas Society for the past 6 years with our graphic novels, our animated videos, and social media. It's one that accounts for the phenomenal impact of the San Isidro movement, of course, culminating in the song heard round the world. And it's an observation that should encourage all of us within the Liberty community to branch out, to get creative, to brave being made fun of, to brave being foolish, and to tap into the power of narrative, of art, of images, of poetry, of song, and build that model for a freer future in this country, in all of the Americas, and all over the world. Thank you.